As learning and development professionals, it can be really easy when a client comes to us and says, we need a course in this. And it can be difficult to push back sometimes and really understand what the performance issue is and if training really is the best answer. I've been using something called the performance equation for a long time, probably a decade even, and it's a great tool to understand what are the different factors or the levers that affect performance. Want to walk through it with you so that you have a sense of what are the different options available to you. Yes, training, but outside of training as well, that might help leaders work with their employees and change their performance. So it's applied to leaders, but it helps you figure out what are the different things that you can suggest to that client who's coming to you saying, I need a training course in this. So, what the performance equation suggests is that performance is a function of a few different factors. There's six of them. The first one is direction and feedback. And that includes things like both management and leadership. So, um, from a management perspective, which is about setting clear expectations and making sure there's clear reporting lines, making sure that the person has the information, the communication, the policies, all the things that they need to do their job successfully. Leadership is more visionary, maybe. So empowering the person, making sure that they have autonomy to learn that, that the team dynamics are smooth. There's diversity, access to people, things like that. So direction and feedback, coaching falls into here as well. The other factor that's important to look at is tools and resources. And that thing includes things like the physical materials that they need to do their job. So a computer, a desk, a cell phone, like really basic things. It also includes digital things like do they have the software that they need or the licenses. And then resources are more like job aids and checklists and standard operating procedures, things like that. It's also important to note that some employees need accommodations. So that would fall under tools and resources as well. The third factor is the environment. So as a leader, what kind of environment are you creating for your employees? So that includes the physical environment. Do they feel safe, physically safe coming to work, which may seem a bit obvious if you're coming into an office, but if you have folks who are working in trades or the professions, you want to make sure obviously that they're going to feel physically safe when they come to work. There's psychological safety, of course, and that ties into equity, diversity, and inclusion. And all of that gets wrapped around is what's the culture like. The fourth one is knowledge and skills. And this one's an important one because usually when that manager is coming to you and saying, we need training in this, this is what they're talking about, knowledge and skills. That's where training really is the best fit. So that includes role specific training, things they need to know for their job specifically, as well as it can include general learning. So maybe an undergraduate degree or a college degree or kind of something more academic or broad based. I'll come back to knowledge and skills in a minute, and I'm presenting each of these factors in a really specific order. The next one is motivators. So this is internal motivation that the employee has, and it ties into things like their individual temperament, their personality. It's also going to be influenced by life events, illness, divorce. If they're caring for an aged parent, they're obviously going to be distracted and focused on that, maybe more so than work. The other thing that comes up here is the environment and the manager's influence. So I know that I talked about environment earlier, and I'll come back to how this ties in. And then finally, we get into innate abilities. And this one's a little bit of a wild card or a little bit controversial, maybe, because there's different schools of thought about how much you can actually change who you are. I'm a firm believer that there's the opportunity to change and grow and learn. I also believe, which might sound contradictory, that there is a core of who we are, that we have preferences and we have natural abilities, things that we naturally struggle with. So even though we can change and adapt and grow, there still is that core of who we are. And that's really what I'm getting at here. So not everybody who plays hockey is going to end up at the NHL, for example. There are some people who just have that combination of physical strength and athleticism and whatever else you need that they're going to end up there. And that's really speaks to their innate ability. So there's 6 factors that contribute to performance, and it's a mathematical equation because all of the factors are joined together by multiplication signs. So if you go back to your primary school math, if anyone is missing, then it nets in 0. So performance equals all of those things, and if one is missing, then performance isn't going to happen. So that's the concept behind the fact that it's a multiplication table. The other thing I want to explain, and I introduced them in a certain order from left, direction, and feedback to right, all the way to innate abilities. And as a manager, you have the most influence over things to the left. So the most influence over direction and feedback, tools and resources and environment. And as you go to the right, your ability to influence wanes. Whereas from the employee's perspective, they have the biggest impact on sort of their innate abilities, I suppose, but to what extent they're motivated and their own skills and knowledge. And as they move to the left, the employee has less impact and ability to control things like their environment, tools and resources, and direction and feedback. So when your manager comes to you and says, I need a training course, start on the left-hand side. So start with, is the manager, if there's a group of employees or if there's an individual employee, instead of sending them on a training course, is the manager and the leader providing the needed direction and feedback? Or at an organizational level, or is the organization being really clear and communicating the expectations, the roles, the responsibilities? From there, is the manager providing the tools and resources? Because if they aren't, then training isn't going to fix that. Same thing at an organizational level. If the organization is saying, you need to sell this product, sales team, and we need to train them on that, but they don't even have the tools and resources to go do that training, then training isn't going to fix that. We need to make sure that the organization is providing tools and resources. And you can continue on over to the right. So this is an opportunity to really look at what are the other factors that are contributing to somebody's performance. Yes, knowledge and skills, to which training is a great solution, could be part of the answer, but there's other areas as well to consider. Last thing I want to point out is how the manager can influence the motivators. And so you can see that by providing direction and feedback, a manager can motivate their employee. And by creating an environment that's collegial and learning and collaborative, that also can create an environment that's more motivating for the employees. So even though the individual is in control of their own motivation and their own desire to do their work or not, the manager can influence that. So 6 factors to consider to add to your toolkit when a manager or somebody comes to you and says, we need training in this course. A framework to help you analyze, is training really the best answer? Is it really a gap in knowledge and skills? Or is there something else going on that a non-training solution might be able to fix?